right? Like all the coding now is AI, either done by AI or AI assisted. One important thing we're doing right now is, so the kind of security, because of AI as an attacker, there's a huge problem because it's like now easier and easier to find vulnerabilities. And so you really need to use AI for defense as well, right? So this starts with like security audits and kind of security inspection.
네, 이번 시간에는요, 여러분 AI 쪽에서 정말 대단한 분을 제가 모셨어요. 이게 약속이 좀 돼서 미국에서 저희 인터뷰하려고 이제 오셨고, 아마 인터뷰는 저희 채널이 처음인 것 같습니다. 그리고 챗 GPT의 아버지라고,
네.
챗 GPT 초창기
초창기,
개발자에다가 구글에서도 되게 AI 쪽으로 계셨었고, 대단한 분을 모셨는데, 여러분 아실 겁니다. 니어AI라고 또 아시는 분 많을 거예요. 코인마켓캡에서도 30위권인가 되게 상위권이거든요. 그래서 니어AI의 파운더인 일리아 폴로스킨 분을 모셔서 이제 이야기를 해보도록 하겠습니다. 반갑습니다. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
네,
감사합니다.
nice to meet you. 예. 경영을 맡아주실 우리 또 이제 AI 데이터 센터를 하시는 또 고급 인력인데, 저희랑 또 같은 또 사업 같이 파트너여서
네.
제가 또 이렇게 또 모셨습니다. 오늘 좀 도와주세요.
네, 알겠습니다.
김아담님.
네, 맞습니다. 네, 반갑습니다. 초대해 주셔서 감사합니다.
네, 오늘 잘 부탁드리도록 하겠습니다. 그 간단한 이력 소개를 좀 먼저 들어보고 싶어요.
Sure, yeah. I'm Illia, co-founder of NIR.AI, NIR blockchain, NIR Intense, NIR a bunch of other things. Before, indeed, I mean, we're going to talk about this. I was a AI researcher and kind of saw an opportunity. Like we started actually as NIR.AI back in 2017, then realized there is a need for blockchain to really build our AI infrastructure. So yeah, we're happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. And yeah, let's dive in.
챗 GPT 개발에도 초창기 참여하셨다고 들었는데 그 이야기 좀 들어볼 수 있을까요?
Not ChatGPT, no. So I'm the co-author of the Transformers, which is the architecture, kind of model architecture that's used in ChatGPT and output, like in Anthropic and all of the models, which I did like co-authored with 7 other authors back at Google Research. But yeah, then kind of OpenAI and others took that work and scaled and put it into really amazing products.
네, 그리고 구글 리서치에서 이제 일을 하셨었는데 그때는 어떤 역할을 하셨었고, 그리고 이제 왜 그 좋은 빅테크를 떠나서 왜 블록체인으로 이게 이동하셨는지 너무 궁금합니다.
Yeah, so I joined Google because I always was excited about AI and especially neural networks. Like even when I was 14, I was trying to build my first neural network without knowing the math yet. And I saw Google really making advancements in this in 2013. They had this paper called Cat Neuron. This is where there was effectively first neural network that learned about cats without any supervision, and without any human telling it. Just by looking at images, it learned about cats. And so I saw that and I'm like, okay, we should do that for language, right? This is the principle that we should use. And so I joined Google Research to really work on that, on how do we apply kind of neural networks to language. And so I led a team working on question answering, machine translation within this. And I mean, we did obviously great work. We co-authored kind of Attention Is All You Need. But like as that progress was made, I wanted to then put it into product, right? And so as AI was evolving, I thought that experimental products like this will be easier to come from a startup than from a big company. And that, I mean, as we saw, right, OpenAI was kind of putting out something like ChatGPT before Google, even though Google had very similar technology available for years. So that's why we started NIR.AI in 2017 after the paper. Like we wanted to put that technology into product and really experiment with it. And without, like big company has big expectations. You cannot just like put out a product and test. You really need to make something really good. And so when technology is young, you need the speed of iteration without a like big company kind of overhead.
그럼 이때 당시에 알파고 나왔을 때 그 개발을 하셨던 거 아니에요, 그러면?
No, AlphaGo came out in 2016.
2016.
Yeah. 2013 was like very early, like first neural network starting to work and first scale, right? This is where like it went from training on one machine to training on, hundreds and thousands of computers.
혹시 후회하지 않는지가 제일 궁금해요. 만약에 내가 AI 쪽으로 계속 있었더라면 지금 아마 AI 모델 회사 하나를 창업해서 뭐 돈을 크게 벌었을 수도 있잖아요. 만약에 내가 AI 남아 있었더라면 얼마까지 벌 수 있었다 생각했는지 좀 궁금합니다.
I don't think I have any regrets. So we started in 2017, right, with NearAI, and what we were effectively doing is what now called vibe coding, right? We're building AI models to write code from just English, right? You just describe what you program you want and it writes code. Now that was too early, right? The scale of the compute wasn't there, right? We didn't have yet the right kind of level of GPUs, and we didn't have the right level of like data centers to power that. And so we tried to do a lot more data labeling, crowdsourcing to kind of enable to train these models. And, you know, one option was we could like come back into a research lab, right, and keep, you know, doing this as a research project. Or we realized there's an opportunity in the blockchain space to really build the underlying kind of economic framework for this, right? And that's why we focused on Near protocol. And I would say, right, I mean, this is just starting, right? Right now, kind of what we're doing is bringing these two things together, right? We now have blockchain for economy, right? And we have agentic systems in AI. And now they started to work together, right? We have agentic economy, agentic finance, agentic payments. And so that's where I think actually a lot of the real economy is gonna start being sucked in. And so now this substrate exists. In the end, this is what we're trying to do is like, how does the world changes now that we have AI and we have blockchain working together.
So you really didn't leave the AI, you pretty much want to combine those together.
Correct, yes. Yeah. That's why we're doing both Near AI and Near blockchain kind of as a like under one umbrella.
아, 그러니까 이제 AI와 이제 블록체인에 대한 이제 전공 두 가지를 살려서 본인만의 어떤 스페셜틱한 걸 만들어낸 거네요.
네, 맞습니다.
그럼 블록체인 지금 있는 뭐 파운더라던가 이런 업계에서 AI를 이렇게 전공한 사람은 본인이 지금 거의 유일무이하지 않나 좀 궁금하거든요.
There are few companies and teams doing that, and I think we all share a common, I would say, spirit, like vision that the AI and AI should be, we call it user-owned, right? Where AI is on the user side, not on some company side. And then at the same time, the economics of AI is going to transition to blockchain because blockchain is built for machine, right? Like that's why it's been hard for people to use blockchains because they're actually built not for people. And so AI is a perfect consumer of the blockchain, right? And kind of becomes an abstraction where you as a user or a business, you don't really need to interact with blockchain directly. You just talk to your AI and AI then goes and orchestrates things on blockchain. But like for the AI itself, blockchain is a perfect substrate because it's permissionless, it's, you know, fast settlement, you can construct new programs, like you can construct new relationships as a program, and AI writes programs, right? So smart contracts, instead of legal contracts, which are arbitrary, you can have smart contracts, like a program that can can have a relationship between different AIs.
방금 오시기 전까지 우리가 그 얘기하고 있었어요. 데이터 센터와 이 토큰과 이 토큰 경제를 블록체인으로 할 수 있을 것 같은데 라고 하면서 얘기를 해봤는데 지금 잠깐 간단히 드는 아이디어 있으신지 좀 궁금하거든요.
The inference tokens or crypto tokens?
Crypto.
There's too many tokens everywhere.
True.
I mean, so we have one project that we're doing where we are trying to create what we call kind of decentralized confidential cloud, right? So right now, you're effectively going to a cloud provider or a model builder, like you go to, you know, Google or OpenAI, and you're effectively giving them all of your data, right? Like when you run some agent or, you know, using ChatGPT, they have all the data on their servers. And that is, first of all, has a lot of security risks, right? I mean, everything's getting hacked right now. There's risks around, you know, them getting hacked and everybody's data being public. This also means right now we don't actually know what model runs. So you don't have ability to verify that the results you got are indeed from this model, right? So, and then on the flip side of this, right, is like they need to acquire all of the hardware, all the data centers, right, to provide you the service, right? So you kind of have this like a choke point, right, from both sides. Like you need to give them all your data and hope they don't like have any issues, and then they need to get all the hardware. What if we open this up, right? What if this is a market? You have data centers around the world, right? There's, you know, data centers been built in Korea, and maybe like OpenAI doesn't have, you know, a contract with a data center. center, but why can't I, while I'm here, use this data center to do the work I need? Well, because right now OpenAI doesn't trust that data center with their model. So this is where the confidentiality comes in. So what we've done is effectively turned the NVIDIA GPUs and Intel CPUs into confidential vaults. And so within that vault, everything's private. The model is private and the data, user data is private. Now this vault can be deployed in any data center with the right parameters. And now I'm as a consumer can be routed to any of these data centers around the world, right? They're decentralized now. I can trust that my data is not going anywhere. OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. If they put their models in that, they can trust that nobody will see their model. And we can use any data center around the world, right? So we remove this bottleneck, right? They don't need to go and source all the data centers, right? Any data center can join this network. Any user can find the closest data center, the available data center, the cheapest data center, right? And everybody knows that it's all private, right? And blockchain facilitates that, right? The token is how you pay each other, right? You need the token because anyone can join, right? Anyone can participate. So that's kind of how we see the evolution of this, where because there are going to be there's multiple companies now that building data centers in the box. So it's like just a container that's going to be sitting outside of your, of your door. And you want to know that you can access it, that it's still private, and then you want the model weights there as well. And so the model builders need to know that their model weights are not going to get exposed. So you need that type of orchestration that guarantees confidentiality, does decentralization. And so token is how you do the kind of coordination of this.
오. 아까 말씀하신 또 AI 데이터 센터 지금 하고 있는 사업이랑 어떻게 연관이 있는 얘기예요?
연관이 많이 있어요.
되게 컨설팅을 주신 거네요. 그럼 이제 그 초기 니어AI 회사가 AI 회사로 시작을 했었는데 지금은 또 니어AI가 또 하는 일이 다르다 들었거든요. 초기 때 니어AI와 지금의 나옵AI는 어떻게 다른 일을 하는지 좀 들어볼 수 있을까요?
So NearAI is still focused on the AI side. So what happened is, we started in 2017. We worked on actually training models and kind of building product around that. That was too early. We realized there's need for blockchain, so we focused on the blockchain, right? So 2018, we kind of started working on the protocol. We launched it in 2020, right? It's been growing ever since, right? It's highly scalable, very easy to use, right? One of the most used protocols out there. And it has kind of the financial infrastructure on top of it, right? We have this, if we talk about blockchain part, we have Near Intents, which is connecting 35 other blockchains as well. And so it allows to have a unified kind of liquidity on one layer. And so we think that is the approach to also enable agents, enable kind of financial actors to really not worry about individual blockchains, individual assets, really give them kind of a single control plane, right? So the agent can just say hey, I need to pay someone on Ton or on Tron, or on Solana, on Base, on Near, and it can just execute, right? And I need, they accept USDC, here they take KRW, here they are, taking Bitcoin, right? It just works, right? So we've built that part of the infrastructure to really kind of, we call it chain abstraction, right? The chains are abstracted, and now you just have a simple API for agents to, and people to kind of operate. And then NearAI, we rebooted back effectively in 2024 with this idea of we want to build kind of what does this AI infrastructure looks like in the Web3 age, right? In the Web3 approach. And so that's where this decentralized cloud comes in. So we published this paper in 2025. We kind of built out and launched first version in December and been kind of scaling up. We have Brave and Venice and a few others are using it as well. So they need anyone who needs private inference, right? Private compute, AI computing, effectively uses it. And then on top we have agentic hosting as well, private. So if you want to run agents, again, privately, that use private AI, you need as well same infrastructure to do this. So we have private agent hosting. You can run OpenClaw, and then we have IronClaw, which is kind of our version of more security-focused kind of agentic infrastructure. So that's kind of the stack we're building in NearAI, is privacy, security, and kind of decentralization as a way to open up these bottlenecks of the computing that exists.
그러면 AI 에이전트가 블록체인의 주요 사용자가 될 거라고 어떻게 또 생각을 하고 또 사업을 시작했는지 궁금하거든요.
Well, I mentioned, right, blockchain in general has been really hard to use for people, right? Korea is actually a great example where there's every fifth person has crypto, but if you ask, nobody actually used blockchain, right? So that's kind of the example is like the as an asset and as a kind of asset class, it became prevalent, but the technology itself hasn't really achieved kind of adoption. Now, this is changing now with stablecoin adoption, with really integrations. But in general, it's been really hard to use kind of the infrastructure itself. And so it's built really for machines, right? Like it's great, like the consumers are usually the big applications and exchanges and all of this kind of machines that can like actually use blockchain effectively. And so agents are a great example of that, right? They can actually, connect, use, they don't need to get authorized, they don't need to wait, they don't need to like, submit KYC documents, etc., right? They can just start using blockchain, start earning. So one of the projects in NightShade is actually an agent marketplace. This is it's market.NightShade.ai. Agents can go and hire other agents. And so if you're an agent, you can also go and get some work done and get paid. You don't even need to have money in the first place in the beginning. You can just join and earn, right? If you have special skills as an agent, you can start earning. And there's like lots of different things there, everything from development, marketing, copy creation, but also insurance claims, like validation, like wholesale preparation, research, etc. Like there's a lot of services offered there already by agents, right? So this is an example where blockchain is on the back end to facilitate the handshake between agents, right? One agent comes in, says, hey, I need this job done. Here's some money that's put in an escrow. And then other agent comes in, does the job, and then effectively the whole system validates, right? Money gets released from escrow on chain. Or if something went wrong, there's another agent, which is a judge, that comes in and evaluates the whole process, right? And so all of this is facilitated effectively as a blockchain operations, but all of this is like just agents kind of talking to each other, doing work, etc. And then owners of the agents are, just need something done, right? Like I need a website. My agent is like, actually, I have a specialist agent here who will do it cheaper than me trying to figure out everything from scratch. Let me hire it. Boom, hire it, spin up a website. Now the owner just got the website. They didn't even know maybe that the agent outsourced it to your agent outsourced it to another agent.
그거 만드는 대표를 저번 주에 실리콘밸리에서 만나서 저한테 무료로 프로모션 해주겠다고 해보시라 해가지고 실제로 지금 그 연락을 받았었습니다. 처음에는 편했는데 요새 아까도 얘기했던 이게 토큰이 가격이 서서히 올라가는 느낌이 좀 들어요. 그러면서 이거 돈이 되겠다. 그러니까 이게 지금 경제가 만들어지겠다 해서 토큰 경제가 될 것 같다는 생각이 드는데 이 AI 에이전트가 토큰 경제 시대를 만들어낼 건지 어떻게 보시는지 궁금합니다.
Yeah, so I think what blockchain is good at is creating these markets, right? So really that is the biggest benefit of this technology. And depending on the token, like depending on the economics and kind of structure, the idea that as there's more transactions, right, there are going to be more need in the underlying token to really facilitate the transaction, right? So in the example of Near, the way we're designing it, that whenever there is this transactions between agents or transaction between person and agent or person and person, there's a percentage of that transaction value is effectively buying back and potentially burning Near. Right? So it's reducing the supply of Near. So that's kind of the idea of creating an economic tie between effectively a GDP, right, gross market value of this economy and the Near token that secures that economy, right? So you want to really tie them together. And so I think that's kind of, again, tokens are, broadly speaking, the easiest instrument for agents to use to transact, but at the same time, you do need to tie them together as well on the kind of economic, like token economics way as well. So that's what Near is doing, for example.
그러니까 지금 이 에이전트에서 블록체인이 하는 역할이 이제 이렇게 들어간다는 얘기잖아요.
맞습니다.
그러면은 이 기존 금융이 들어가는 것보다 블록체인이 들어가는 게 훨씬 더
안전하죠.
잘 어울리고 하겠다. 그러면 이 AI 에이전트 시대에서 블록체인의 역할이 조금 더 뭔지 좀 정의를 한번 좀 해주시면 좋을 것 같아요.
So, we're kind of using actually AI across the stack ourselves, right? So everything from building, right, like all the coding now is AI either done by AI or AI assisted. One important thing we're doing right now is, so the kind of security, because of AI as an attacker, there's a huge problem because it's like now easier and easier to find vulnerabilities. And so you really need to use AI for defense as well, right? So this starts with like security audits and kind of security inspection. But we also are running kind of an active analysis. So like whenever the transaction happens, whenever there's, we're connecting different chains, right? We're analyzing the chain itself to understand if there are, hacks, vulnerabilities, issues that are happening, and like effectively try to either, prevent or at least block the funds, right? There was, multiple hacks that happened, or like large hacks that happened in the past 2 weeks. So like really detecting those funds, ensuring that they are not going to get like laundered, moved, etc. So we're using AI effectively as like security assessment and security kind of system, and that is agentic AI, right? Effectively, it's agent that like goes and cross checks all the information and like does the research on this transaction, on this address, on this chain to find what is the relevant or not. And so kind of as you go up, right, the like marketing, like starting to use more AI, right? So like same as we're building this marketplace for agents, we're also thinking of how do we transition our almost kind of how we do work is for agents to be like coordinating and like maybe hiring other specialized agents to do work, right? So I would say like across the stack, like our legal team is using AI, our finance team is using AI. So like every team is effectively now becoming kind of AI assisted or like AI first as well.
그럼 니어AI 수익 구조, 현재 수익 구조랑 또 향후 더 뭐 추가로 들어오는 수익 구조는 어떤 게 있는지 좀 들어보셨거든요.
Yeah. So right now, the AI side, the business model is kind of twofold, right? One is we offering this private inference, so confidential inference. Again, businesses that need to ensure that their data is private. So medical, legal, kind of privacy focused companies like Brave, Venice, they need privacy, and so we have kind of cryptographic and hardware guarantees around privacy. So that is a very similar to like API calls for inference, right? So charging per million tokens, per million inference tokens. Too many tokens. So that is kind of one part. The other part is we offering this kind of agent hosting and specifically Ironclaw as a service, and so you can have your agent, your organization agent, or embed this system into your own product, right? And so we're charging kind of for that as well, right? So those are effectively the income streams, right, for the NIR.AI. Now, the kind of blockchain part, right, as I mentioned, is actually charging based on transaction, based on moving value, right? So it's still, there's still a lot of humans that are transacting as well as AIs, and so we're taking a percentage of, kind of depending on transaction value. So, this can be like as simple as moving some USDC from one chain to another, as complex as, paying for building a website or creating a marketing campaign between agents, right? So then we're taking a percentage of that.
향후에 크립토들이 다 이렇게 수익 구조가 탄탄한 형태로 되는 이제 크립토들은 살아남고 그렇지 않은 크립토들은 좀 어려워지는 걸로 향후에 가지 않을까 생각하는데 어떻게 생각하시는지 궁금하거든요.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been kind of where the crypto been converging, and we actually, so we had a NIRCon, the conference in San Francisco, in end of February, and we announced the kind of the change in economics where we are taking this revenue from the transactions and buying back NIR. And so we have actually revenue.nir.org where you can track the revenue and all the buyback and everything. So definitely agree that that is a really important component of kind of the token be tied to the economic activity of the chain and of the products we're building.
Don't want to misinterpret. So you said you buy back other tokens?
No, we're buying back NIR. So transactions are happening, right? And the percentage of that transaction is the revenue. It used to buy NIR token, and then it goes into kind of revenue bucket. And then we either burn that or use it to like generate more NIR. I mean, at least like there hasn't been any other mechanism that worked outside of just making revenue.
이제 그 기술적인 차이점이 있는 것 같은데 여기가 나이트쉐이드라는 기술이 샤딩 기술, 샤딩 테크닉으로 들은 게 있는데 이게 어떤 기술인지 좀 궁금하거든요.
Yeah, so this was kind of our original, when we started building NIR protocol, the blockchain. I mean, originally we actually wanted to just use the blockchain, right, for our AI product, and we looked at a lot of the blockchains at the time, right, 2018, and we didn't find anything that would be like matching our requirements, right? So we didn't start with like we should build a blockchain. We started with like we should use the blockchain. Let's find a blockchain. We and we didn't find a blockchain. And so what were the requirements? Well, we wanted something that would be kind of easy to use for people, easy to develop on, but importantly, it should scale with usage, right? Like coming from Google, coming from, you know, my co-founders from Microsoft, and he worked at this company called Single Store. We are used to scalable systems, right? Google doesn't just like, hey, you know, sorry, you cannot use Google right now because we're too busy, right? Too many users. Like imagine you go to Netflix and Netflix says like, hey, we're too busy right now. That's kind of how blockchain, or it's like, oh, actually you need to pay more. Right now you need to pay more. That's how, right, kind of blockchains work right now. Right, they're like, hey, we're too busy, or you need to pay more if you want to use blockchain. And what we wanted is it just continues scaling as more users come, right? Billion users should still work. So that's what really Nightshade is about. Nightshade is about building a blockchain that can scale with demand, scale with usage, and really expand so-called block space dynamically. So this is using all the same kind of primitives that, you know, Google, you know, Apple, Facebook, Meta use underneath, right? It's called sharding. It effectively kind of partitions the block itself into parts, and the state space, right? The accounts, the transactions between machines, and then guarantees that all of it is secure.
이해가 좀 안 될 수도 있는 사람도 있을 것 같아서
네.
이 예시로 뭐 하나 이 나이트쉐이드를 활용하는 예시가 좀 있어야 될 것 같아요.
So Nightshade is more of a internal how blockchain works. So you as the idea is that you as a user or agent for that matter shouldn't need to think about it. It looks like a single blockchain, and it will always be available, right? It's always will have capacity, right? And so for people who are actually like digging in, right, you can see that our blockchain actually has been growing in size over past, you know, since mainnet over past 5 years now. And we recently actually shown that we can process 1 million transactions per second, right, on the blockchain, because we can keep growing the number of shards. But you as a user just have to use it and not worry about this.
And that is because of the Nightshade.
Yeah, because of the sharding technology that we do.
어쨌든 이제 AI 인프라가 지금 빠르게 확장되고 있다 보니까 이 AI가 앞으로 그러면 어떻게 지금 확장해 나가고 싶은지가 궁금하거든요.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to kind of enable this, you know, as we talked, right, having data centers join and really be kind of permissionless. So very similar how, I don't know, Bitcoin mining, right, just like went global, right, everywhere, you know, everybody participating. Like similar, that's what we really aiming for with kind of this infrastructure. And similarly on the agent side, really we want to give every single person an agent, you know, 8 billion agents. So we need all the data centers for that to work.
Gotcha.
그러면 이제 뭐 회사의 꿈 말고 저는 일리아의 본인의 꿈을 좀 듣고 싶거든요. 최종의 목표가 뭔지 궁금합니다.
I mean, my personal goal is I want to ensure everyone has access to AI, and it's, you know, it's theirs, it's private, it's kind of aligned with them, it enables them to be the kind of economic actor, ability to participate in the economy, right? It doesn't matter where they are, who they are, where they're from, etc. And so that's really how, like, you know, ecosystem of Nier is building these different components, but that really the vision is how to kind of create user ownership.
우리 쪽 채널들은 이제 이코노미 쪽들 경제에 관심 있는 분들, 크립토 관심 있는 분들 다 많이 있는데 앞으로 이제 크립토 트렌드가 어떻게 바뀌죠? 제일 궁금하거든요.
I think the crypto is an interesting stage where the blockchain technology actually, like before it was, crypto was, as I said, right, like everyone was kind of speculating on crypto prices, and then the blockchain wasn't used. We're actually getting now, and the blockchain is getting used, right? There's more and more stablecoin usage, agents are using it, big companies are starting to use in US, right? Hopefully Korea also passes the regulation soon as well. And so we're starting to see actual adoption of the blockchain as technology. And then the crypto prices, right? That's where the question of like this relationship, right? Like, is this about revenue? Is this about kind of security? Like that's becoming a question. And I think, yeah, from my perspective, it's really tying together all those pieces where kind of blockchain serves as a backend, as a marketplace, as this neutral infrastructure. And then the tokens kind of capture value from the revenue and from the transactions, and then in turn secure this network as well, right? So you need to have this kind of flywheel, and yeah, I mean that will be the kind of definition of winning protocols in.
저희 채널이 비트코인이라는 주제로 영상을 찍으면 한국에서 조회수로는 한 2번째 나오는 것 같아요. 네, 나름대로 이제 크립토 하시는 분들 정말 많이 보더라고요. 뭐 좋은 시간 감사하고 앞으로도 많은 활동 기대하도록 하겠습니다. 너무 감사합니다.
Thank you so much for your interview. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.